Learn to let people in so they can help you be strong, not take your strength away. Hola! Welcome to Sana Sana podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Lopez Tomei. I'm a first-generation Cuban-American woman, breast cancer survivor, and mother of 5. I'm also a certified professional coach. Sana Sana is dedicated to you, Hispanic and Latina breast cancer survivors who've always been the strong ones and now feel lost in their identity after cancer diagnosis. Every week, I'll be sharing the foundation of my ecosystem of healing coaching process, which I use to help my clients restore trust in their bodies, release perfectionism, advocate for themselves, and live from a place of healing and peace rather than survival. Tune in to hear my real-life experiences, carving a new path for myself after remission, but helping my coaching clients carve a new path for themselves too. Are you the strong one? Are you the Luisa Madrigal of your family, community, place of worship, or workplace? The one who handles it, the one who people call, the one who shows up, figures it out, holds it together, and rarely, if ever, asks for anything in return, carrying the weight of your family while suppressing your own needs to be dependable? If that's you, I see you, and I want to talk to you today because I was you. I still am in many ways, and cancer had a few things to say about that. This is episode 3 of Sana Sana. Today, we're talking about what being the strong one costs, what it cost me, and what I learned to do instead. I have a lot to say today. Cuando no. In episodes 1 and 2, we talked about being strong and about the strong women we learned it all from. For me, my abuela Ventura brought it on with a laugh and kept going. And my mom was confined to her bed for months, pregnant with me, waiting to get out of Cuba, and never making a production out of any of it. And so many of you have similar stories that taught you how to be, not through words, through watching. In my family and in my community, sé fuerte, or be strong, wasn't a suggestion. Strength meant not needing. It meant self-sufficiency. Needing someone or needing help meant that you weren't strong enough to carry the weight of expectations as a mother, as the eldest first-gen daughter, as a wife, and that just was not an option. And it worked for a long time. I built a life that I'm proud of on the foundation of that strength. I went to law school and became a lawyer. I have a 25 plus years of public service career that I'm also very proud of. 5 kids, community service, and a household that ran because I ran it. And before we continue, let's clarify, or as my mother would say, que quede claro, she would say. There's nothing wrong with being the strong one. I am grateful to have the capacity to be responsible for many things at once. I'm proud of the capacity I grew and honed to be a wife, mother of several kids, and a professional. I am capable of experiencing, processing, and integrating the many challenges that I've experienced in life. First marriage and motherhood at a young age, divorce, law school, remarriage, multiple pregnancies, mental health issues, and breast cancer, just to name a few. So in all honesty, I should probably call this episode, Even the Strong One Needs to Learn How to Ask for Help. And that's the boundary, isn't it? The boundary for someone who considers themselves responsible for everything shouldn't be to shut people out, but to learn to let people in so they can help you be strong, not take your strength away. Also, hello, being the strong one is not the same as being well. Before my cancer diagnosis, the exhaustion was real, not the tired after a long day at work or with the kids kind of exhaustion, the kind that lives underneath everything, the kind that you stop noticing because it's always there. It felt normal to constantly be taking care of something or someone, or thinking about the multiple things that I had to take care of and to do. Being the strong one for me meant coming home after a long day at work and telling myself I couldn't sit down until the house was picked up, dinner was planned, and all of my chores were done. Literally, I would say to myself, kick off my shoes, put my purse and my bag down, and I'd look longingly at the sofa and really want to turn on HGTV. And then I tell myself, nope, you're not allowed to do that until the house is in order, everything's in order. And the days I didn't do those things or didn't push myself that way, and there were many days like that, I felt like a failure. And you all, I recently learned a new term, mental load, and I instantly understood what it meant. Being the strong one doesn't just mean being physically strong, but also mentally strong. For years, I didn't understand that part of the pressure I was under was not just to perform and to be strong enough physically to handle everything, but also the pressure of carrying all of the logistics for my life, for my kids' lives, for my husband's life around in my head all of the time. And the pressure that the culture and I had put on myself to not ask for help with any of it, either because I mistakenly thought that only I could handle it and handle it well, or because that was my role as wife and mother and professional, was to handle it all on my own. The culture put pressure on me, and I put pressure on myself to not ask for help with any of it, either because I mistakenly thought that only I could handle it and handle it well, or because that was my role as a wife and a mother and a professional, was to handle it all on my own. So I have to say that I was extremely privileged and lucky to eventually be able to afford to get help with housekeeping and like meal delivery services or takeout. And wow, what a difference that made. It not only opened up real time on my calendar, but also opened up mental space for me that I quickly filled with other things, not gonna lie, but the mental load really exists. And when I recently heard that term for the first time, it just, nobody had to explain it to me. I automatically understood what they were referring to. And being the strong one is exhausting. The story that I had written for myself is that the strong one doesn't get to rest, doesn't get to fall apart. You know, that was the deal. And I'd been honoring that deal for a very long time, just like my mother before me and her mother before her. And of course I was falling apart. And I even resisted mental health support for decades longer than I needed to. Maybe I shouldn't say decades longer because I'm not that old. For years longer than I needed to because of the stigma associated with seeing a therapist, getting mental health support. And because I had convinced myself that if I reached out for that kind of help, it meant I was weak and helpless and not self-sufficient enough. I had to be my own expert at everything. Otherwise, who even was I? So let me set a scene for you. It's August 2016. I've just received a stage 3 breast cancer diagnosis. I am the chief of staff at my district in my agency, the third largest district at the time, behind only Los Angeles and New York. And 4 months of chemo was set to start in September. I had to ask, not just for help, but for a formal acknowledgement that I could not for once show up the way I always had, the way I had conditioned others to expect me to show up. I had spent my entire career being the one who handled things, the one who didn't need anything adjusted for their well-being, the one who made sure that everything was running smoothly behind the scenes, the one who made it all work, regardless of what was going on with me. And chief of staff was my first big complex role with multiple responsibilities across a large district with multiple portfolios that included things like training and congressional inquiries and operations and emergency management, community relations, facilities, HR, hiring and staffing, and across a large geographic area that included most of South Florida and the Caribbean. And 3 years before my diagnosis, shortly after being selected for chief of staff, I found out that I was pregnant with our 5th child. Surprise! It was a lovely surprise. And so I had to take maternity leave. And while maternity leave is protected, so it's a protected right and not a big deal to take, and especially not in the government, I still felt like I had to work 3 times as hard to prove myself. And I loved this job. I had always wanted to be a chief of staff. And while I always proudly told the story of all the responsibilities that came along with the position, the truth is that it was a lot, and I never asked for help. I never questioned the amount of work, the workload, the amount of work that I was responsible for. Never thought to have a conversation with anyone, colleague or boss, to say, maybe some of these responsibilities should be redistributed. I didn't do this, not because I didn't have plenty of competent and trustworthy people on my team that would have helped, and certainly not because I had a boss who wouldn't have listened, because I had a wonderful boss at the time who was supportive and believed in me and cheered me on, but because it felt like a failure if I couldn't carry it all, like a personal failure. And so here I was asking for someone to step in and take over most of my portfolio for the 4 months I'd be getting chemo. And the one portfolio I took with me to work on from home was enough to keep me busy full time, by the way. But I did ask for the help, not because I wanted to, because cancer left me no other choice, which is, it's not embarrassing for me to say. I look back on myself, the me of 2016, with a ton of grace and self-compassion, but it's incredible for me to say that I asked for the help because cancer left me no other choice, not because it was the smart or the right thing to do. And I resisted it with everything in me. It took my oncologist warning me that because of the type and length of chemo treatment I'd receive, my immune system would be extremely compromised. And we were entering flu season. And I remember her, begging me, low-key begging me, as the kids say, can't you request to work from home? And I took that to my coach, and it took us a couple of sessions for me to accept asking my boss for the ability to work from home, because that was the best for my own health and well-being. I had stage 3 cancer because I had abandoned my help and not taken the time I was entitled to for a mammogram, and I was still inclined to put my health needs last. So working on this with my coach was the first time I really was able to frame it in a way that didn't feel selfish, but that felt like honoring a basic survival instinct of self-care. And I could have requested to simply be on sick leave for the duration of my chemo treatment. And I did take sick days as needed, when needed, especially when chemo left me nauseated and too exhausted to sit up, much less to do any work, even from home. But like I said, I kept this one portfolio, this one area of responsibility of work during treatment, because it gave me something to hold on to, something that still felt like me, like the me that I had invested so much in building and creating, productive, contributing, needed. And thinking back on all that, I just have to say cancer didn't ask my permission to disrupt my life. It didn't care that I was the one who held things together, that I was the one that people needed to get things done. It just arrived, and I had to figure out how to still be me inside this life that I no longer recognized. Hold that thought, because before we go any further, I need to share something with you that I consider non-negotiable. It won't take long, and it might save your life. I'm a 10-year breast cancer survivor, and I want to share something that could truly save your life. When I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer in August 2016, I hadn't had a mammogram in 4 years. I was busy. I felt fine. I thought it could wait. Turns out it couldn't. And for Latina and Hispanic women like us, this conversation matters even more, because breast cancer is the leading cause of cancer death among Hispanic women in the United States. Even though we are sometimes diagnosed at slightly lower rates than other groups, we're more likely to be diagnosed later, when the cancer is more advanced and harder to treat. We're also more likely to develop aggressive types, like triple-negative breast cancer, which grow faster and have fewer treatment options. And here's the part we don't talk about enough. These outcomes are often not about biology alone. They're about delayed detection. Because when breast cancer is found early, survival rates are dramatically higher. Screening, especially mammograms, is one of the biggest reasons breast cancer deaths in the US have dropped by more than 40% over the past few decades. Early detection saves lives, period. That's why today the guidance is clear. Start getting mammograms at age 40 and don't skip them. Whether you go every year or every 2 years, the most important thing is consistency. Because breast cancer doesn't wait, and neither should we. Let's talk about self-exams. They're not a replacement for mammograms, but they are still powerful. Because knowing what's normal for your body means you're more likely to notice when something changes. And when something changes, you act sooner. And sooner can mean everything. I know firsthand what it feels like to think, I'll go later. But later can turn into 4 years, like it did for me. So hear me when I say this. If you are 40 or older, schedule your mammogram. If you missed one, reschedule it. If you've been putting it off, this is your sign. Because for our community, the gap isn't just cancer. It's access, awareness, and timing. And you deserve early detection. You deserve options. You deserve a chance at the best possible outcome. I'm here today because eventually I did get checked. But I'll always wonder, what if I hadn't waited so long? So please don't wait. Schedule the mammogram, know your body, advocate for yourself, because your life is worth that appointment. Okay, now back to the episode, to my kitchen, my sister, and to the meal train. So I don't remember whose idea it was, but my sister was the engine that got it going, a meal train. I remember feeling mortified at the thought, ¿Qué? People are going to feed me and my family? Qué pena. Meal trains are for people who need help. And I was a person accustomed to helping or to handling my own stuff quietly without much visibility. The message I had desperately tried to convey up to that point was that I had it all together. I could have a baby on a Thursday and be back at law school the following Monday. And yes, I did that. And that's a story for another episode. But I was not supposed to be calling attention to myself by being on the receiving end of a meal train, not even with cancer. Honestly, to avoid the embarrassment of not just asking for help, but accepting the kind of help that felt like my responsibility, I would have chosen takeout or a meal service paid for by us. Yeah, our budget would have taken a hit at a time when out-of-pocket medical expenses were piling up, but I would have done it rather than let people see that I didn't have a plan for feeding myself and my family during cancer treatment. Thank God my sister insisted. And then people showed up. Family, neighbors, school community, church community, distant cousins, people I hadn't spoken to in years. They brought or ordered thoughtful meals, not just food. They were meals that took my health into account, that took my chemo treatment into account. They took my kids' tastes into account, my husband's needs. People who saw my whole family and what we needed at that time showed up for all of us when we asked for help through the meal train. So by asking for and accepting help, by letting my sister organize that meal train, I gave other people the chance to show up for us. And they did, in a way I never would have let them if I'd had any other choice. The strong one in me would have ordered the takeout. I would have meal prepped and frozen meals for, the future, despite how frazzled and terrified I was. Right? I would have tried anyway. That strong one would have protected her pride and strained her budget and pushed herself past exhaustion again, all while telling herself that she was fine. She would have missed all the blessings of welcoming help from others, because what I realized was that by letting others help, I gave them the chance to connect, to do something meaningful, to love me and my family in a concrete way. The strong one's refusal to need anything doesn't just cost her. It didn't just cost me. it costs the people who love me too. So something shifted when it became impossible to keep performing strength. There was also relief. I realized after that some part of me had been waiting for permission to put it down, to let things go, to hand things to someone else, to accept the help. Not because I was weak, because I was exhausted. And because the performance had been going on for so long that I'd stopped knowing it was a performance. So as much as I hate especially when we're talking about cancer and cancer diagnosis, the kind of the silver lining view or perspective, I have to say that cancer gave me the permission I never would have given myself. And that's not a comfortable thing to say. What did it give me permission to do? It gave me permission to rest. It gave me permission to not know. It gave me permission to let someone else handle it. It gave me permission to be the one who needed something and permission to say, I need help. And the women I've worked with, both in career coaching and in cancer recovery coaching, tell me this true, that the hardest part for them isn't the diagnosis or the crisis, whether it's a health crisis or a work crisis. It was discovering how tired they already were. Cancer didn't create the exhaustion. It just finally made it impossible to ignore. And I want to pause here and say, if that's resonating with you and you want to explore what that looks like for you personally, that's exactly the work that I do. You can find me at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei and book a free discovery call. And we'll start the conversation there. I also want to name the grief inside the relief, because there's loss in it too. The identity built on not needing anyone doesn't just disappear because you decide to let it go or you have no other choice but to let it go. You grieve it, and that's real. So I don't have a new tidy and all-encompassing definition of strength. Definitions change as you age, as life changes, as you grow into and out of different seasons. What strength meant for me at 46, after a cancer diagnosis in the middle of chemo, is not what it means to me at 56, 10 years into survivorship. And that's not inconsistency. That's how wisdom grows and evolves. What I do know, strength means being able to receive, not just give. Not occasionally, not when you have no other choice, but as a practice, as something you actually believe you deserve and that you open up your heart to and allow others into. And strength means telling the truth about how you're doing. Not, muy bien, gracias, todo bien, everything's good, nothing to see here. Not presenting a curated version of how you're doing, the IG ready version, not the I'm fine, how are you version, the real one. Even when it's incomplete, even when you don't have it figured out yet. So as I invite you to consider your own internal healing while you do the work of externally healing from cancer, I am still healing out loud and in real time. And even through this podcast, we're in episode 3 now. And when I was working on episode 2, I struggled a bit because I was going back into the archives and pulling memories, and a lot of feelings came up with those memories. And yeah, it was hard for me to record episode 2 because there was stuff coming up and I was having to deal with it as it came up. So I'm still healing out loud and in real time. And so grateful to be doing that through this podcast and with all of you. I don't have it all figured out, but the woman who needed to hear this 10 years ago might be you today, and you deserve to hear it. And that's why I'm doing this and why I invite you to be here week after week with me and with your sister survivors. And part of the work that I do as a cancer recovery coach is helping women figure out what they've been carrying that was never theirs to carry alone. And again, if you want to do that work with me, I'd love that. Come find me. The link is in the show notes. So the strong one that I invited in at the beginning of this episode, the one who recognized herself maybe in the first 30 seconds and has stuck with me this far. I know you're tired. not just from this, from a cancer diagnosis, from treatment, from surviving, but from all of it. From years of being the one who handles things. And I know that asking for help feels like losing something, like admitting something, like giving up a version of yourself that you worked very hard to build. But here's what I've learned, slowly, imperfectly, and I'm still learning. The people who know and love you want to show up for you, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. They've been waiting for you to let them. You giving them that chance is not weakness. It is one of the most generous things that you'll ever do. And I don't want you to let go of your strength. It's what's helping to carry you through this chapter of your life. It's what's helped you achieve things that maybe no one thought you would or could. It's what keeps you moving forward to the hopes and dreams that you have for your future and for your family's future and for your community's future. I want you to let go of the feeling that if you're not carrying the boulder of everyone else's expectations and needs, that you're a failure, because you're not. Sana, sana, colita de rana. Si no sanas hoy, sanarás mañana. You don't have to be healed all the way through today. You just have to be willing to let someone help you get there. Until next time, sana, sana. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Sana Sana, the show that helps you heal and restore the parts of your ecosystem that were depleted after a breast cancer diagnosis. If you liked the episode, please leave us a rating and review so we can reach more incredible survivors, como tú, who want to heal with us. If you want to stay connected with our growing community, check out our Instagram at Eileen Lopez Tomei Coach and share what part of the episode touched your heart today. See you next week.